Hello, and welcome back to It's a Very Exciting Time, a podcast by a UFO nerd and his tolerant friend. My name is Scott, and I've been fascinated by the phenomenon my whole life.
And I'm Chuck. I'm an aerospace nerd and a tolerant friend.
We started this podcast because since 2017, there have been shocking revelations, from news of secret Pentagon programs to confirmed videos of astonishing craft. In a nutshell, now that we know the government has recovered non-human technology.
Or at least we will once Luna finishes sending strongly worded letters to the UFO gatekeepers.
I'm sure that's going to work.
Yeah.
It raises a natural question. If UFOs are real, what else? Suddenly, some of these other parts of the phenomenon that seemed unlikely are pulled into the realm of the possible.
And they may still be unlikely. But even if it's new science and not aliens.
Woohoo! It's a very exciting time.
Yeah. Quick reminder before we get into it. If you want to support what we do here, best way is by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/veryexcitingtime. All right. Yeah. That's me. Scott. I know that we have like an intro line there, but I know that Scott has an intro line next.
Which was meant to respond to your intro line. You just threw out the whole script, buddy.
Okay, well, let me start this one over again.
No, we've got a bit of a grab bag episode today, folks. I love being able to come in and having one big topic like, holy shit, this incredible thing happened. But of course, even though we are living in very exciting times and stuff is happening left, right, and center, we do occasionally have a week where a lot of stuff happened, but none of it is like big central headline, let's talk about it for an hour. It's like, yeah, there's a little bit on this. Like we got some updates on the Congressional Task Force, Skywatchers working on their next video. We got some NASA news. Elon Musk is making some wild claims. We've even got a bunch of updates on the mystery drone situation.
Hey, okay, cool. Yeah, let's dive in. So I don't think you mentioned this above, but I remember talking about, did Lou get his appointment as the UAP Czar?
He did not.
Okay. That would be fun.
Chris Sharp, the founder of Liberation Times, tweeted about this. He said, "Last year, I am told that proposals for a UAP select committee were sent to Congress, and earlier this year, proposals for a UAP czar were sent to the Trump admin. Currently, we have seen no movement on either of these proposals."
Yeah, I mean, that's disappointing, but kind of unsurprising, because I feel like we didn't see a lot of movement on UAP stuff in his first presidency. So, but it was supposed to be a little different this time around. Everybody was really kind of pinning their hopes on Trump being the UAP president or the disclosure president. That said, we got a little bit of context around this that I think was helpful from Nick Pope, who, weirdly, I think this might be the first time we've mentioned him on the podcast. Yeah, I don't recognize him.
So for the benefit of anybody like Chuck, who may not have any idea who Nick Pope is basically the British Lou Elizondo. He ran the UFO desk for the British Ministry of Defense. And since he retired, he has been a regular in the UFO community and pops up on Twitter and stuff. So he is a fairly informed guy coming from the British side of things.
I'm just imagining Lou with a monocle and a top hat.
It's not quite, but that's super funny. But yeah, Nick said in response to Chris Sharp's tweet, he said, "My assessment would be that both of these proposals have been put on hold in view of the formation of the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. The task force may end its work on UAPs, USOs by recommending the creation of a UAP committee and or a UAP czar, but you probably wouldn't want all three operating at once."
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like we could do more than one thing at a time, but maybe, yeah. So then what is going on with the task force?
Chuck, you know what it's like to work with a boss who is kind of distractible. shall we say?
Yeah.
You don't put too many things in front of them at a time. If you want them to focus on one, you give them one piece of paper, one recommendation.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They're busy enough.
But yeah, speaking of the task force, the House Oversight Committee did finally get around to announcing the full list of members participating on the task force.
So who's joining the crew?
So we already knew the chair of the task force is Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and she is joined by 6 of her fellow Republicans, Representatives Nancy Mace, Tim Burchett, Lauren Boebert, Eric Burleson, Eli Crane, and Brandon Gill.
Wow.
And then, in addition to that, there are 4 Democratic members, Representatives Robert Garcia, Raha Krishnamurthy, Summer Lee, and Dave Min.
Okay. At first, I thought you were ending with just the Republicans. I was like, wow, okay. But
no. Well, it kind of matches how they announced it, because they did. They announced all the Republican members almost immediately, and her was like, "Are there any Democrats on this?" Like
oh yeah, also these.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, also these guys."
Okay, yeah. So I'm assuming, is this the entire UAP caucus? I can never remember who's in it.
It's just about, yeah. It's all of them except for Representatives Andy Ogles and Jared Moskowitz.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Moskowitz we hear his name quite often. Why aren't they on the task force, do you think? Or do we?
Yeah, so Douglas Dean Johnson was tweeting about this, and he said, I was asked why Representative Jared Moskowitz, who's active on UAP matters, was not appointed as a minority member of the task force. Moskowitz is not a member of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee in the current Congress, so he's ineligible to serve as a member of the task force. However, any House member may ask permission of a chairman, in this case Representative Luna, to be waived on to participate in any specific public hearing. Panel chairs usually, but not always, grant such waive-on requests.
Okay, this is interesting. I didn't know about that kind of angle, that you have to be on the major committee in order to participate in a subcommittee. I guess that makes sense. Well,
and if you think about it, we've actually seen that before. So, for example, in some of the previous House Oversight Committee hearings on UAPs, we saw members who were not part of the committee, such as AOC, joining it because they thought it was important.
Yeah. Okay. Really interesting. Okay. So if he asks, Luna would probably let him join, but do you think he will?
Okay. The task force is currently proving to be a bit controversial, both within the UFO community and outside. As we've discussed, Representative Luna has a, shall we say, bit of a bulldog demeanor when it comes to a topic she really wants to get involved in. And she is going full steam ahead with, President Trump said that we have to declassify everything, so I sent you letters. Why haven't you declassified it? It's been 8 hours, and she's getting letters back, but not quite as fast as she wants. And she's just kind of being a little obnoxious about it, which if she was currently focused on UFO matters, I would probably be in favor of. But unfortunately, at the moment, what she is obsessed with is the Epstein list. That is turning into a whole political kerfuffle. And I would guess that Moskowitz is maybe waiting for the dust to settle a little bit before he comes in. Things are a little chaotic at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so kind of turning to other things. I know that there's... I know that the Trump administration is gutting pretty much every federal agency. Has that, including NASA, NHC, which freaks me out. The National Hurricane Center is, anyways,
not
whatever.
Great.
It's not great.
It's not great.
So,
who needs NOAA?
Yeah, who needs that?
Who needs the team that picks the parts of next year's flu vaccine?
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently not us. But has that had any impact on Arrow or any of the other UFO things?
To the best of my knowledge, it has not currently affected Arrow. Although I don't think it's because they don't care about Arrow. I think it's just they haven't gotten around to looking at the Pentagon yet. I saw one headline that said the Pentagon should be expecting some staff cuts as well, but I don't believe it's happened yet. That said, this did have a surprising impact on the UFO community. Politico put out a report. They said FBI agents who are part of a secretive group investigating the surge of UAP reports are worried that they could lose their jobs in a possible FBI purge targeting officials who worked on January 6th cases.
Wait, okay. I have a bunch of questions about this.
Fair.
So first, did we know that the FBI had a UFO group?
We did not know that. That is brand new information. Politico went on and said, excuse me, the existence of the FBI's informal working group on the issue has not been publicly disclosed before. People familiar with the group said it consists of a national program manager and more than a dozen employees across the country who spend much of their time tracking down UAPs.
So, that's a pretty small group. Do they is this a conspiracy group? Why would all of those agents why would the Venn diagram of January 6th investigation and UAP investigation perfectly overlap? Or does it?
Let's come back to the January 6th part.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So talking about why would the FBI have this group in the first place?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's surprising to hear that there are any agents whose full-time responsibilities are tracking down UFOs. So the FBI, naturally, when Politico reached out for comment, do you guys have a UFO group? What's going on here? They responded and said, the FBI investigates unidentified anomalous phenomena when there is a potential for violation of federal law, particularly unlawful acts that could adversely affect our national interests.
So, is this for UFOs that are breaking the law?
That's right. All those criminal ne'er-do-well UFOs.
I don't know, alien smugglers or something. I don't know.
I think a better read on that is they're using UAP in the strict sense unknown. And as with the mystery drones, the kind of best hypothesis is these are not aliens, but advanced foreign tech. And as a result, the FBI was heavily involved in the mystery drone investigation. I think you're looking at something similar here. A pilot sees something, they don't know what it is. They don't necessarily have a reason to suspect it's alien, but it's unexpected and it's in the airspace, and you end up talking to the FBI.
Okay, so
your guess is as good as mine. Yeah.
So a cartel that has come into possession of a blimp would actually technically be a UAP, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Got it.
Or ducks.
Or
yeah, some sort of
always comes back to
international duck syndicate smuggling bird seed between continents. Yeah,
it'd be bread, right?
Bread. You got to bring French bread into America. All the good baguettes.
Freedom bread doesn't do it for them.
Now, the other question you asked, which I think is really important, is why on earth would a January 6th purge affect UFO guys? Right. So Politico said all agents in the Bureau were ordered to fill out a questionnaire about their work on the Capitol attack. There are worries that the move could lead to a Trump-ordered purge at the agency, and some of the FBI agents who work in the UFO group also worked on January 6th cases.
Okay, so it's not a perfect overlap, but some of them. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's simultaneously disgusting, disappointing, and unsurprising.
Yeah, that's about right.
I would be worried too. It does feel a little bit like in Office Space when the consultants came in and asked people to
What was it you would say you do exactly?
Do here.
Yeah. I talk to people. I have people skills. What don't you people understand about that?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways. So, political retribution aside, how did we end up finding out about this?
Yeah, this is kind of wild, right? Because the FBI didn't put out a press release.
I wouldn't imagine.
So our old friend Ryan Graves, you'll probably remember Ryan Graves, former Navy pilot. He was involved in the 2014 UFO encounters with the USS Roosevelt. And that's where we got the gimbal video, was from Ryan Graves' group. He is currently the executive director of a group called Americans for Safe Aerospace, which is explicitly focused on breaking down the stigma around UFO reporting, because currently pilots face a lot of stigma, including concerns that they will lose their pilot's license if they say they saw a UFO. So Ryan Graves is working very hard on that. He said, I have spoken to several agents from the FBI's UAP Working Group who are afraid of losing their role and the investigation getting unintentionally compromised.
It's weird. It seems weird to me that Ryan Graves would be the one breaking this instead of some news organization, but is that weird? I don't know.
Very weird that we would be hearing about a secret FBI UFO program from Ryan Graves. That said, there is a connection here that kind of explains why Ryan Graves would be talking about it. It's still weird he would break the news of a secret group, but Graves said, this FBI working group is uniquely positioned to investigate UAP due to their joint law enforcement and intelligence authorities. Witnesses who come to the ASA always decide how their case is handled, but many want their reports investigated by the FBI's UAP working group.
It's really interesting. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So he's running a pilot advocacy group that regularly passes reports to the formerly secret FBI UFO group.
Yeah.
And he's worried that they're at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. What a strange way to learn about a group. But
super weird, right?
Yeah.
It's not as weird as finding out that the Pentagon had a UFO program because of Tom DeLonge, the lead singer of Blink-182, but it's up there.
It's close. Yeah. Yeah. Well, any other weird political news? I know you mentioned Elon Musk at some point.
Oh man, this story. All right. So Elon appeared on Joe Rogan recently. So Joe Rogan is talking to Elon. He says, you're the guy to ask about this. What possibility is there that there's some sort of advanced propulsion system technology that's being worked on in secret and that they're trying to cover up with this talk of alien tech? Is it possible that there's some sort of very secret program that's going on in cahoots with some defense contractors that are developing advanced propulsion systems? Reasonable question, right? And as people in the UFO community, we feel the answer is a resounding yes. Elon responds, he babbles for a while, but he boils down to a nutshell. He says, I have the equivalent of an all-access pass from a security clearance standpoint. I don't think they're hiding it from me. I don't think they could.
Yeah. I mean, sure. That old argument. I mean, if J2 can't access it, I'm sure that Trump's friend could.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I know we've talked about this at length in other previous podcasts, but yeah, I'm betting that there were some quippy replies to this.
Not quippy, but definitely like firm.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
Hey, Ryan Graves again popped up in response.
Nice.
He said, security clearance alone is not enough. Access also requires a need to know. Elon may have a high-level clearance, like many others, but that doesn't mean he's entitled to every U.S. secret. Without a justified need to know, he would not have the access to make such a claim. So yeah, this matches what we've heard about repeatedly. There is multiple levels of clearance. There's secret, top secret, SCI, which is secure compartmented information, etc. So when somebody tells you they have top secret SCI clearance, that alone doesn't mean anything. It means they have the approval to view information classified at that level, broadly speaking. But they still need permission because almost all of this compartmented information is kept within programs that have a need-to-know list. Only people on that list actually get to see it, regardless of what your clearance level is. So if Elon ain't on the list, he's not getting access.
I wonder how much, like, I know we aren't going to answer this, but it just occurred to me. I wonder how much info is marked as top secret or SCI, but isn't actually compartmentalized.
It's interesting, right? Because, the implication is that there is information that is not compartmentalized and is merely secret or top secret. I assume that's the kind of thing that you do just get access to. That's probably things like, presidential briefings and shit. I bet even that's compartmentalized. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question. It's weird how much we have had to learn about clearance levels for our UFO podcast.
yeah, it is a little weird. So, what else? You said something about NASA too. I was excited about that.
Yeah, well, I don't think you'll be excited after this. Justin Sneed of the UFO Disclosure Yearbook newsletter put out an article. He said, by the end of 2023, NASA had a newly appointed director of UAP research and a raft of recommendations from the independent UAP study team it had commissioned to advise NASA on how to use its assets to study UAP.
Yeah, I remember that press conference, but we haven't talked about it ever since then. Did anything happen with that?
The fact that we have not talked about it should probably tell you everything you need to know. But yes, this is the first confirmation we've gotten that, it was always possible that they were just churning behind the scenes and just saying nothing publicly.
Little duck feet under the water.
That's right, yeah. According to UAP study team member Mike Gold, who you may remember was one of the congressional hearing witnesses as well, the position of director of UAP research was vacated a year later and remains vacant. After serving in the role for 1 year, McInerney, sorry if I got that name wrong. Anyway, the director was rotated out to other duties and no one else was rotated in. Gold told me, quote, I am afraid my understanding is that person has been reassigned and now we have no one working on UAP, at least explicitly at the agency.
Yeah, well, that explains why there's no news. That's disappointing. Do we have confirmation of that, or did NASA
once
have anything to say?
Once he heard this from Mike Gold, he reached out to NASA, and NASA confirmed. They said the position is currently vacant, and the agency stands ready for additional collaboration with the Department of Defense's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office for support as appropriate.
Okay. So if Arrow decides they need them, they're ready for it. Okay. Yeah. We should totally apply. Just as a joint entity, 2 for 1. How could they refuse, right?
NASA, hit us up, Scott or Chuck at veryexcitingtime.com. We're ready to serve.
We're ready. I've been going for a director position for a long time. This could be a big boon.
There you go.
Me.
Yeah. You just needed to switch industries.
All right. Anyways, speaking kind of abstractly about watching the sky, what's up with Jake Barber and Skywatcher?
That was a lovely transition there, Chuck.
Thank you.
So Skywatcher tweeted recently, and they said they are working on Skywatcher Part 2. They said,
the
quote,
Skywatching.
The Skywatching. Electric Boogaloo. The Skywatcher team has been hard at work over the last month, and we feel very confident in our recent progress. Skywatcher Part 2 will focus on exactly what everyone wants, data.
Ooh, that does sound promising.
Mm-hmm. They said, our release will include a video interview and analysis of new UAP data, including multiple videos captured by the Skywatcher team, and an elaboration on our data collection and analysis strategy moving forward. No, this is not cell phone footage.
I love that they have to specify that. So it sounds like we weren't the only ones giving a bit of grief about their video quality.
Yeah.
So what's the timeline on it?
They said, our objective is to complete all 3 of these components. Oh, sorry. I rephrased it. They had 3 components, but 2 of them were boring and I didn't want to talk about them. But our objective is to complete all of our components in the next 4 to 6 weeks. That was 2 weeks ago.
Ooh, very exciting. So we got like 4 weeks or so. Have there been rumors or hints about the contents yet?
No. Okay, I will say this for the Skywatcher team. I think they are doing a good job of this is effectively a stand-up update. For anybody who doesn't work in tech, forgive me for getting boring for a second, but this is the most mundane part of our job, is the idea that you work in a team and your team doesn't necessarily have visibility into what you're doing. So once a day, you and your team all give each other an update about what you've been doing. Their release was very stand-up-y. It was like, hey, we've been making a lot of progress. We're really happy. We're currently working on the following things. Nothing's a blocker. Here's our time. It really did feel like a stand-up update.
No blockers.
But yeah, they didn't give any hints of the content, which I think is smart. Right. They're saying we expect 4 to 6 weeks, but who knows? We have heard your concerns about cell phone quality footage. We'll be addressing that. That's all great. That's exactly what I want to hear from them at this point. If I had to guess, last time we talked about Skywatcher, we talked about Ross Coulthart's story about Elon and the UAP summoning that happened there, which we know Jake Barber and the Skywatcher team were involved with.
Right. That was the naked people in the hot springs, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's going to make for a great video, and seems like interesting. They have beautiful naked people, and suddenly they have really high quality footage.
The team just wasn't motivated. You had to go film in the right spot.
Fucking UFOs. I don't know.
Oh my god.
Well, I can tell you saved the best for last. What's going on with the New Jersey mystery drones?
I mean, best is a strong word, but yes, the biggest part of our update today is talking about the mystery drones. So as I've mentioned a couple of times now, we didn't have enough to make a whole episode out of it. And frankly, I'm as burned out on talking about it as everybody else is about hearing about it. But enough things have happened that it was worth giving a little update. So bear with me. We're going to talk about the mystery drones for a little bit. We've already discussed this briefly, but let me give a little more detail. Back on January 28th, the White House press secretary gave a release. She said, after research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. This was not the enemy.
So this was like a month ago, and they said they were flying, like past tense. Have they stopped?
Oh, no, of course not. The White House would like us to believe they have stopped, but New Jersey Mayor Melham came out and said, drones are still flying here, so when they use the past tense, that's alarming.
Right, yeah. They were authorized.
Yeah, are they still? Who can say? But yeah, not only are they still flying in Jersey, but they have continued spreading around the country. Drones have been spotted flying over power plants in Wyoming. They've been in restricted airspace in Idaho. They're exhibiting swarming behaviors in Ohio, and drones the size of hot tubs have been spotted flying over Indiana. And not only all of that, Germany has been seeing so many drones over military bases that they authorized their military to shoot down any unauthorized drones that they see.
I mean, I'm surprised that wasn't previously authorized, but have they actually shot any down?
Not to my knowledge. Okay. There
doesn't mean
there are
haven't.
stories that pop up every now and then that says that some drones have crashed or been shot down or recovered, including potentially over Langley. But I haven't seen confirmation of any of this. It's just like someone says, oh yeah, I heard one of the drones crashed or one of the drones was shot down. But to the best of my knowledge, still, nobody has actually recovered one of these drones.
Okay. Second question. When did hot tub become a standard meter?
There's a long-running joke on the internet that is like, Americans will do anything other than use the metric system.
Yeah.
Drones the size of hot tubs.
It's like how many seats in that hot tub? What kind of hot tub? Like there's so many. Anyways, whatever. Okay. So has the FAA said anything about this? Like, seems...
Yeah. Funny story about that. So Chris Sharp of Liberation Times immediately reached out to them. He said, I have since received comment from the FAA. A spokesperson told me, please contact the White House for their official statement. This response from the FAA tells us that at this point, they will not or are unable to confirm what the White House just stated.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds a little bit like the FAA got thrown under the bus with no heads up. And
yeah. Okay. USA Today put out an article addressing the oddness of this answer from the White House. They said there has been no official explanation as to why the FAA failed to tell New Jersey law enforcement, elected officials, as well as the public that they had authorized all the mysterious drone flights. There was also no explanation why, if the FAA had authorized the flights, the agency then placed temporary flight restrictions over parts of New Jersey for special security reasons.
Yeah. I mean, it may not be an official explanation, but there is a pretty good explanation. The FAA didn't fail because they didn't actually approve anything.
Yeah, reading between the lines, that seems to be it. It's interesting because everybody has to approach this as if the White House's answer is valid. So if you accept the White House's answer, there's a fairly shocking failure here, which is this was a big story. Everyone is involved. And people repeatedly asked the FAA what's going on. And the FAA said, no idea, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jake Barber of Skywatcher, we actually mentioned this before, but he responded and said, the activity there was not FAA approved. I know firsthand because I was assigned there specifically to look at the debacle from an FAA violation standpoint in order to give a basis to the FBI. Someone is not presenting the whole story to our new president.
Yep. The whole thing feels like Trump assumed that Biden was keeping secrets, got in there, found out that no one actually knows what the drones were, so they just decided to say whatever they could in the hopes that it would go away.
Yeah, totally. I have seen a few variations on this theme that, like, when the Republicans were the opposition party, it's easy to talk about how the government is keeping secrets and make that kind of your platform. And then all of a sudden you're the ones in power, and suddenly somebody is actually in charge of producing the Epstein list and the JFK files and the UFO files and telling people what the drones are. And if you can't find the answer to it because the previous administration wasn't keeping a secret, they just didn't know, it puts you in a raw spot when your whole thing was there was a cover-up. If there wasn't a cover-up, just nobody knew the answer, at least in the case of the drones. That seems to be my read on the situation as well. Chris Sharp, again from Liberation Times, said, I think many of us can smell bullshit. Why did the FAA set up flight restrictions to stop its own authorized, approved drones? Why did the drones fly over sensitive military airspace? Why was there no communication of these incidents to the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, law enforcement, who were responding to the situation? Why couldn't the FBI, the DoD, and law enforcement take drones down despite their best efforts? Also, you decide. Was it really a coincidence that the drone activity coincided with other incursions over sensitive military assets in the UK and Germany?
No. Not to mention all the other locations around the globe.
Exactly.
I, like, just stating this, because I don't very often, I have to remind myself sometimes, I'm still not sold that it's aliens, but it does seem pretty mysterious.
Yeah, and to be clear, that's the line we've been taking the whole time. Like, I wasn't sure the mystery drones were a UFO story or deserved to be talked about, but the community was on fire about it for a while. And there was, in the Venn diagram between probably Russia and probably aliens, there was enough overlap that it made it interesting for us to talk about. So I'm glad we did. But I think we've both kind of the whole time been on, there's some weirdness to this, but none of that weirdness is beyond the bounds of human capability. Someone could have made a generational leap on drones. I find that unlikely, but it's not impossible. And I would be foolish to pretend it was impossible. But there's so much weirdness about this story, not being able to track the drones, not being able to find out who was flying them, not being able to interfere with them, not being able to bring them down. Like, none of that makes any sense if they're just fancy Russian drones. Yeah. I don't know, man. Jeff Nucatelli, who's an Air Force veteran, tweeted in response. He said, so the FAA authorized drones to fly at low altitude over homes, airports, military installations, and nuclear facilities? Why? This answer is totally incoherent. Why was there a drone ban? Why did they keep it secret? What were the drones doing? These drones were 100 feet over my house, over my children, over my neighbors, over our school. What research are they conducting on us? Who's conducting the research? Who ordered the research? Who gave consent for all of us to participate in this research? Answers are needed now.
Yeah. Those are great freaking questions. There's, and the ones at the end, like, kind of boil the blood, which I think, of course, is the intent. I did do a tiny bit of research about the bits at the end, like the drones being 100 foot over the house, over children, over neighbors, over the school. We know the first thing this person said about flying over restricted airspace, of course, that's obvious, that's not allowed. But the bit about flying over homes and schools and consent, unfortunately, it's not needed.
Right.
Like the FAA licensing, it in most
I think
cases.
he meant more consent in the form of if they're over our homes and schools and they're for research purposes,
sure,
they're researching us.
Maybe.
Who gave them permission to research? But I agree with you. The broader point is, regardless of legality, someone is flying these drones. We can't determine who. We now have a pat answer from the White House that it was FAA authorized. It is not saying the FAA is flying these drones.
Right.
Although many people are jumping to that conclusion. But it raises more questions than it answers. Okay, the FAA authorized it. Great. Thank you for telling us that. Let's accept that as a given, that these were FAA authorized drones. Who? Why? Where? How? Why?
Yeah. I mean, should we be talking about, is it allowable for anyone to fly fleets of drones over people's houses? There are privacy restrictions if you start doing recordings or video or whatever. But if you aren't doing those, is it allowed? Should it be? I don't know.
I mean, it's the old question, right? Like, if the only consequence to breaking a law is a fine, then it's not a law. Like, it's not actually restricted. It's just expensive. What are the actual restrictions in place? And it may be, as you're kind of leading to, that we're living at a pivot point where the existing laws around what drones are allowed to do are based on an earlier era when drones were rare and expensive.
Yeah.
And usually singular with a clear and obvious attached pilot, a controller on the ground. I mean, if we're now moving to an era of bigger, larger, more common swarms of drones, maybe our legislation needs to change, because I think most people, if they saw a single drone, you know, a little like DJI thing hovering over their house, would be uncomfortable, but maybe not freaked out. But
Yeah.
a hot tub or SUV sized drone hovering over your house silently for hours, and there's multiple of them around the neighborhood, I'm starting to have some questions about what's going on, and maybe our laws need to change at that point. So yeah, like you said, completely ignoring, are these alien, are they Russian, whatever, even if they're freaking American, like, there are some questions that need to be answered here. So the problem is the White House has put out this situation where they tried to give a pat answer, and that answer actually raises more issues and more concerns than if they were like, we don't know, or it was Russia. If it's Russia, okay, fine. They're breaking the law. Arguably, it's a declaration of war. If they're alien, all right, fine. You can stop aliens. If they're approved American things, I have way more questions. Like, weirdly, than, you know, if they're Russian, I assume they're nefarious. If they're alien, I assume they're mysterious. If they're American, hold on. Somebody needs to come up and talk about this.
It's sort of, if it's American, I sort of assume they're mysterious and nefarious.
Well, yeah, there is that. New Jersey Sheriff Sean Golden, who of course comes at this from a slight different angle, gave a statement, and he was largely sympathetic. He was like, hey, I'm glad that President Trump finally told us something about this. That was kind of his broad stance on it. It's good to know these were authorized. However, even he was like, had they just put a simple statement out, we would not have wasted so much time and so many resources. It is disappointing that we had to have the DHS from DC in here with their special equipment. It is disappointing that the FBI had to waste all their man hours on a tip line for hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. Let's bring the FAA in to say, why didn't they notify local and state officials so we didn't waste all these resources?
Right. I wish that the blame wasn't falling on the FAA.
Agreed. Because it's almost certainly not them.
Yeah. And it's like, we've built an environment where the FAA can't say that another department was incorrect. Or that the White, you know, if the White House is viewed as just another department of the executive branch, it sucks that we can't say, hey, I think they made a mistake. We have to assume that they're correct and that the FAA did something malicious or wrong. And it's like, the Occam's razor says it may not have been that.
Yeah.
It could have been the White House.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it all comes back to, we have to play this game where the White House says it was the FAA.
Right.
Okay, I don't actually believe you, but let's assume you're right.
But let's
what
take it to its
follows
logical
from
conclusion.
that statement is, okay, who, why, where, how? Like, there are questions that now need to be answered by the FAA. And I agree with you, given that I don't actually believe the FAA authorized this, I sympathize for them. Effectively, their great-grand boss came out and told everyone it was their fault. And the best they can do is go talk to the White House. I get it. It's a bad time to piss off the White House.
Yep.
But
it's never a great time.
As the public, I think the sheriff's statement is dead on.
Yeah.
Completely ignoring, is this ethical? Is this appropriate? Is this legal? We are dealing with a situation where law enforcement and government agencies wasted a ton of time and effort investigating something that, according to the White House, was approved and authorized. But when we asked the FAA, they said it wasn't. Okay, bare minimum, that's a communication failure. And that is the kind of thing that after 9/11 led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, to avoid these types of cross-departmental communication failures. In theory, that's what the DHS is supposed to prevent. And yet, according to the White House, we're right back there again. And
this White House cares so much about reducing expenses. You would think they would care deeply about preventing all these departments from going out and doing something pointless.
Right. And that raises another question, right? Like, if that's what happened, you would think that the Trump White House would be out here going, look how much time and effort the Biden administration wasted by not just telling people that, but they're not. They are clearly just kind of hoping the story will go away. And frustratingly, it kind of has. Like most of the mainstream news departments just kind of accepted this answer and went, okay, I guess A, there are no more drones, and B, those drones were FAA. And when you combine that with the earlier obfuscation thrown up by John Kirby saying all of these drones were hobbyists or piloted aircraft and nobody knows what they're looking at in the sky and it's all just a big cluster, but there's nothing unusual happening. Certainly no unauthorized objects have been spotted in restricted airspace. Journalists are left in this weird spot where until you can find some evidence, what you're hearing across the board from the government is nothing to see here. Please go away and stop asking questions. I wish they wouldn't, but they appear to have.
It's amazing how short our attention span is. I was just listening to a thing earlier today about how Apollo 11 was like the most watched thing that had ever happened. And Apollo 12 had already dropped off to the point where most news places didn't even cover it. Just kind of wild.
Now, speaking about the fact that the White House would very much like to focus on the idea that these are authorized, FAA authorized commercial drones or hobbyist drones or regular pilots, it does not address the fact that there were military incursions. And case in point, Senator Tim Kaine, when asked about the White House's statement, said, well, I don't know about New Jersey, but that's definitely not the case with respect to the Virginia situation at Langley.
Nice. Okay, so this is about the drone incursions over Langley Air Force Base, like a year ago. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So almost a year before all this stuff in New Jersey, there were a ton of drone incursions at Langley that resulted in a ton of chaos and have never been explained. It's just like nobody has even tried to be like, oh yeah, we managed to figure out it was Russia afterwards. Like, no, it was full stop. A mystery, has been the whole time. Kaine went on to say, neither the FAA nor the military has given us a sufficient answer, and I don't think they have an answer that they're not giving us. I just don't think they have one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Hanlon's razor, right? Like, never ascribe to malice that which can be incompetence. Yeah, but
or not even incompetence, right? Like if they are as mysterious as we believe, as we've talked about it, it may not be incompetence. They sent a lot of people out there to investigate it, and they weren't able to figure it out.
I really want a corollary to Hanlon's that like rephrases it from incompetence to just like lack of attention or something less malicious. Anyways, interesting that they drew a senator's attention and ire. That can never be good.
Not just one. Askapol has been on fire about this, talking to them all. Senator Andy Kim also commented on it. He said, I've been meaning to reach out to the FAA to ask, what research are they talking about? Because I have no idea what that means. It made it sound like there was some research project. As far as I know, none of that exists. I just did not find that to be a satisfactory answer. In fact, it just raised more questions.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah. And then Senator Cory Booker said, the fact is clear that there were drones being flown in ways that were not FAA approved. So I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about. I was told directly by officials that that is not the case. Which is perhaps the strongest refutation I have seen of this from someone in the government.
Yeah. They've made the situation so much worse. Like, just hoping it would blow over. But, you know, while there's still sightings happening and clear contradictions, like, I think they just made it muddier. Yeah. It's embarrassing. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's super embarrassing. We've been saying the whole time that, like, the real problem with this mystery drone story is either it is exactly what it looks like, and these are some sort of advanced objects, whether they be foreign tech or alien or whatever, that are invading our airspace, including our most heavily restricted airspace, with utter impunity, which is terrifying and bad.
Yeah.
Or someone knows what it is and is keeping it secret for reasons, which is terrifying and bad. I fail to see any answer to this that does not result in a great big concerning problem. And all the Trump administration has managed to do is add another possibility here, which is it was our own people, and not like the like secretive black ops, like government, like high tech, like don't tell anybody or we'll kill you stuff, but just like FAA science drones, which is somehow even worse than if it was like a secret spy plane or like a loose nuke simulation. Like,
yeah. At least those would be explainable. Yeah.
It's a clown show, man.
Clown show. Yeah.
So anyway, that's where we're at. It's been a weird couple of weeks. Got a bit of a grab bag of topics for us. I'm hoping something exciting happens soon that we can
cool stuff.
Sink our teeth into a little more beyond Elon just saying that he has access to everything. Okay, buddy.
Yep. You and Luna.
It's okay. The ducks told him it was nothing to worry about.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on It's a Very Exciting Time. You can find show notes and more on our website, veryexcitingtime.com, as well as links to our Discord and social media accounts.
And you can email us at Scott or Chuck at veryexcitingtime.com. And if you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/veryexcitingtime.
That's right. NASA, we're waiting to hear from you.
Yep.
Hit us up.
Yep.
And Chuck, as always, my wife thanks you for listening to me talk about UFOs so she doesn't have to.